It was a calm Thursday evening, one of those rare times when everything felt a bit too peaceful. The house was quiet, the only sound being the gentle hum of the dishwasher running in the kitchen. I was sitting on the couch, folding laundry, trying to keep myself busy while waiting for my husband to return from work. My son Matt had just come home from his part-time job. He recently started working in the evenings to save money for his upcoming college semester. At 22, he had grown into a confident young man, resembling his father in many ways, yet different in others. His presence always brought a certain energy into the house, and today was no different. "Hey Mom, you okay?" he asked as he entered the living room, tossing his keys onto the coffee table. Smiled. "Yeah, just finishing up here. Are you hungry?" "I was thinking about starting dinner soon." He shrugged. "I could eat, I guess. Is Dad coming home soon?" I froze for a moment, my hands pausing over the laundry. "Yeah, he'll be home in about an hour," I answered a bit too quickly. Something about my reply seemed to catch Matt's attention. He looked at me, his eyebrows slightly furrowed, as if he was trying to read my thoughts. I looked away, pretending to focus on folding the clothes. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his tone casual but carrying a hint of concern. I forced a smile. "Of course, sweetie. Why wouldn't it be?" But even as I spoke, I could feel the weight of unspoken thoughts hanging between us. There was something I couldn't explain, something I didn't even want to admit. Matt sat down on the edge of the couch, closer than I expected. His presence was comforting, yet it made me uneasy. There was a tension I couldn't ignore, a silent pressure growing stronger with each passing moment. As we sat there, I found myself thinking about how much Matt had grown, how quickly time had passed. It felt like just yesterday he was a little boy, running around the house full of questions and energy. But now he was a man, confident, self-assured, and gradually becoming distant from the child I had raised. "You sure everything's okay, Mom?" he asked again, his voice softer and more concerned this time. I looked up at him, meeting his eyes. There was something in his gaze that made my heart skip a beat, a softness perhaps, or maybe something I couldn't quite understand. And that frightened me. "It's nothing," I said, standing up suddenly, trying to shake off the strange feeling that had settled over me. "I'll get started on dinner." But as I walked away, I couldn't forget how his eyes had lingered on mine. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us, something unspoken. In the kitchen, I tried to focus on cooking, hoping the routine would calm me. I kept glancing at the clock, counting down the minutes until my husband would walk through the door. Strangely, a part of me wished he wouldn't. I didn't know why, but some part of me wanted to hold on to this quiet moment with Matt just a little longer. A few minutes later, he wandered into the kitchen, leaning against the counter while I stirred the sauce on the stove. He was watching me, but not in the usual way. There was an intensity in his gaze that made my heart race. "Need any help?" he asked, his voice low, almost hesitant. I quickly shook my head. "No, I've got it, thanks." But even as I said it, I could feel the tension building again, thickening the air between us. I didn't know how to handle it or make sense of the feelings stirring inside me. I was his mother, and yet... I glanced at the clock again, my stomach tightening. My husband would be home soon. "Matt, could you?" Before I could finish, he stepped closer, too close. His hand brushed against mine as he reached for the spoon I was holding. Suddenly, the room felt too small, too quiet, too filled with something I didn't want to name. A spark ran through me at his touch, and I quickly pulled my hand away, startled by its intensity. "Mom!" His voice was soft, concerned. "Are you okay?" I looked up at him, my heart pounding. I didn't know how to respond. I couldn't explain what I was feeling. I didn't even understand it myself. "I'm fine," I finally said. I spoke, my voice shakier than I wanted. "Just tired, that's all." But I knew it was more than that. Something had changed between us, something I couldn't ignore. The air was heavy with unspoken thoughts, hidden feelings, and the weight of it all felt suffocating. I turned back to the stove, desperate to focus on anything except the growing tension between us. My husband would be home soon. Everything would return to normal then, right? But deep down I knew nothing was normal anymore. Dinner was quiet, too quiet. Matt and I sat across from each other at the dining table. The silence between us was louder than it should have been. I tried to focus on the clinking of our forks, the soft hum of the refrigerator, anything to distract me from the rising tension I felt with every passing minute. I glanced at the clock. My husband should have been home by now, but there was still no sign of him. It was getting late, and the quiet between Matt and me was becoming unbearable. "So, did you talk to Dad today?" Matt asked, breaking the silence. His voice sounded casual, but there was something beneath it that made my heart skip a beat. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak, afraid of what might slip out if I did. "He said he'd be home by 8, I finally answered, trying to make my voice sound normal. "But you know how work can be. Probably stuck in traffic." Matt leaned back in his chair, studying me. His eyes never left mine, and I could feel the weight of his stare. It was unsettling, the way he looked at me like he was trying to figure out something I wasn't ready to reveal. "Mom, are you sure you're okay?" he asked again, for what felt like the 100th time that evening. I forced a smile, shaking my head slightly. "I'm fine, Matt. Really." But the truth was I wasn't fine. I hadn't been fine since I noticed the way his eyes lingered on mine just a little too long. There was something there, something neither of us wanted to admit, but both of us could feel. The sound of my phone vibrating on the counter broke the tension. I jumped up, grateful for the distraction. It was a message from my husband. "Running late. Don't wait up for me." I set the phone down, my stomach twisting. He wasn't coming home anytime soon. "Dad's not coming home, is he?" Matt asked, his voice softer now, like he already knew the answer. I shook my head. "No, he's running late," I replied, trying to sound casual, but the words felt heavy, filled with more meaning than they should have carried. Matt nodded slowly, not breaking eye contact. The room felt too small again, the air too heavy with everything we weren't saying. "Well," Matt said, standing up and walking toward me, "I guess that means we've got the house to ourselves for a while, huh?" I swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of how close he was standing. His eyes searched mine for something I didn't want to give. "Yeah, I guess so," I said, my voice barely a whisper. There was a pause, a silence so thick I could almost feel it pressing down on me. Then, before I could say anything else, Matt reached out and took my hand. Froze. The touch was innocent enough, but the way his thumb gently moved over my skin sent a shiver through me. My breath caught in my throat as I looked up at him, struggling to stay composed, trying to ignore how fast my heart was beating. "Mom," he said softly. His voice filled with something I couldn't name. I need to talk to you." I quickly pulled my hand away, my heart pounding in my ears. "Matt, we can't." I began, but I couldn't finish. The words were too dangerous, too heavy to say out loud. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on mine. "Mom, please," he whispered. "Just listen to me. I don't know what's happening between us, but I know you feel it too." I stepped back, my mind screaming to put distance between us, but my body felt frozen. My pulse quickened, the weight of his words sinking in. He was right. I could feel it too, that strange, unspoken tension growing for weeks now. But I couldn't allow it to go any further. "We can't do this, Matt," I said, my voice trembling. "This isn't right. You're my son." Matt's expression softened, and for a brief moment, I saw the boy he used to be. The little boy who would run to me when he scraped his knee, who asked endless questions before bedtime. But that boy was gone, replaced by the man standing in front of me now. "I know," he said quietly, "but I can't help how I feel. And I don't think you can either." The air between us grew heavier, charged with a tension neither of us knew how to manage. My heart raced as I searched his face for any sign that this was all just a misunderstanding. But there was no mistaking the look in his eyes. I shook my head, stepping back once more. "No, Matt. We can't. This isn't right. I'm your mother and I love you, but not like that. Not the way you're thinking. He looked at me, pain flashing across his face, but he didn't step away. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. His voice filled with quiet desperation. You won't, I assured him, my voice barely audible. But we need to stop this now before it goes too far. The silence that followed was suffocating, thick with everything unsaid. I wanted to comfort him like I used to when he was younger, but I couldn't. Not now. Not after what had been spoken. I think we need some space, I finally said, my voice shaking. Maybe you should go back to school early. Just for a little while. Matt didn't respond at first. He simply stared at me, his face unreadable. Then, after what felt like forever, he slowly nodded. Yeah, he whispered. Maybe you're right. The next morning, the house was eerily silent. I had barely slept, tossing and turning all night, replaying everything that had happened over and over in my mind. I couldn't understand how things had spiraled so quickly into a place I never imagined we'd be. When I finally got out of bed, I found Matt sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly into his cup of coffee. His bags were packed and waiting by the door. My heart sank. Morning, I said softly, trying to sound normal, though I wasn't sure I even remembered what normal felt like anymore. Morning, Mom, Matt replied, his voice soft and distant. He didn't look up, and the space between us felt heavier than ever. I stood there for a moment, unsure what to say. Felt wrong. The air between us was heavy with unspoken words and unresolved emotions that had built up over the past few days. I wanted to tell him that everything would be okay, that we could go back to how things used to be. But deep down, I knew that wasn't possible. I'm going to head back to school today, Matt said after a long silence, finally meeting my gaze. His eyes were filled with a sadness I had never seen in him before, and it tore at my heart. I nodded slowly, trying to hold myself together. That's probably for the best, I whispered softly. He stood up and walked over to his bags. Before leaving, he turned to face me once more. Mom, he began, hesitating as if searching for the right words. I'm sorry for everything. I never wanted to make you uncomfortable. His voice trailed off, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. I swallowed hard, holding back the tears threatening to fall. It's okay, Matt, I said gently, though I wasn't sure if it really was. We'll be fine. We just need some space right now. He nodded, though he didn't look convinced. There was a long, painful silence before he finally picked up his bags and walked toward the door. I watched him leave, feeling a deep sense of loss, like something between us had been broken in a way that could never fully heal. Just as he was about to step out, he turned back one last time. I love you, Mom, he said, his voice soft, filled with aching sincerity. I love you too, Matt, I replied, my voice trembling. Always. And then he was gone. The house felt emptier than it had in years, and the silence was overwhelming. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that something between us had changed, something we could never undo. I spent the rest of the day trying to keep myself occupied, cleaning the house, organizing closets, anything to distract my mind from the thoughts swirling inside. But nothing worked. The quiet moments were the hardest. Every time I paused, my mind drifted back to that moment in the kitchen when Matt had reached out, the moment everything had shifted. That night, my husband finally came home. He kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day, and settled onto the couch like nothing was wrong. He had no idea about the storm that had been building beneath the surface. I wanted to tell him, to confess everything, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The weight of what had almost happened was too heavy, too shameful to speak aloud. Instead, I went to bed early, leaving him downstairs watching TV. As I lay in the darkness, the events of the past few days replayed in my mind over and over. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, that the tension between Matt and me had been my imagination. But I knew that wasn't true. Something had shifted, and there was no going back. The line between mother and son had blurred, and even though we hadn't crossed it, the fact that it had been there at all haunted me. Days turned into weeks, and life continued. But the house still felt emptier without Matt. My husband noticed, of course, but I always brushed it off, saying it was just part of life. Kids grow up, things change. But deep down I knew it was more than that. I tried reaching out to Matt a few times, texting to see how he was doing. His replies were always short, distant. I didn't push him. I knew we both needed time. As the weeks passed, I kept hoping that the distance would help, that time apart would give us both the clarity to move forward. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if we ever could. The relationship between a mother and son was supposed to be simple and pure. But ours had become something far more complicated, something neither of us ever expected. And as much as I wanted to believe we could return to how things once were, I knew deep down that the change in our relationship had altered us both forever. Thank you for watching and listening to my story. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.